I was going to start by saying episode 101,
Yeah, let's go, baby.
Zoe
New era.
101.
Zoe 101. All the best things are 101.
To be fair, I
English
think
101, which is where you learned you were dyslexic.
that was way early. They're like, this kid can't read in kindergarten. Actually, I don't know if kindergartners can read.
I could.
Probably should figure. No, Mr. Big Man can read over here, huh?
Still
Doesn't
one
have a
thing
learning disability.
One thing I can do. Well. So what's new, buddy? I haven't talked to you since 1960.
Yeah, you've been gone for a bit. You've been
Since
out,
you've been gone.
out on the high seas.
Yeah.
Not the drink. He's always drinking on high sea.
It's true.
No, I think I want to do some type of martial arts. But am I too old?
Oh, I think it depends on what kind of martial arts you're getting into.
I don't know. There's a new one. I'm kind of curious. I've never heard of it. It's like Crave Manga.
Crave Manga?
Yeah, like
Krav Maga.
Krav Maga? Is that what you're talking about?
Remember, I'm dyslexic, so
Crave Manga. I just really can't wait to get.
I thought it was going to be like a new form of karate where you also just get to read like Japanese graphic novels.
That's actually hilarious that you got it wrong. It's also the perfect segue into who our guest is today. So I'm just going to go right into it because you're stupid and I want to get to this guy.
We're going to get into this on a different episode, though, about what martial arts I should do.
I like the
manga.
preface.
I got some manhwa for you.
Oh, hey, here we go. All right. Today's guest is honestly maybe one of the most intriguing people I've ever heard about or have met. He's a true wanderluster in the full sense of the word. He is an award-winning artist and author who has created comics for things such as Star Trek, Popeye, Garfield, and to me, he is truly an enigma. Please give it up for Ryan Estrada.
Woo! Hello.
Wasn't quick enough.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, man.
I've been
Thanks
around
for coming
a couple of times or maybe more.
Yeah. I can't wait to get into this, dude.
Yes.
First of all, you have a website, and it is just packed full of accomplishments and things that you've done. And before we get into all your accomplishments, all of that stuff, first and foremost, where are you from? Where are you living now? So we can check that off the list.
I'm from West Bloomfield, Michigan. Grew up in the States. And after that, I started traveling the world. I'll get to where I am now, but I was a gator wrangler in America, an ambassador to Australia, an undocumented animator in Canada, a Ghostbuster in South Korea, a Bollywood voice actor in India. I wandered Kim Jong-il's secret tunnels to North Korea. I slept on a park bench during a Japanese typhoon, dug toilets in Thailand, did an accidental illegal border crossing in Burma, was kidnapped in Cambodia, kicked out of karaoke in Singapore, lost in Laos, violently ill in Vietnam, went whitewater rafting in the Philippines, delivered toys to orphans in Colombia, documented blue-footed boobies in Ecuador, swam with sea turtles in Malaysia, ran with the bulls in Mexico, barely escaped being eaten by lions in Kenya, fainted atop Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, went skinny dipping with piranhas in Peru, lived in a Costa Rican rainforest and a Panamanian volcano, and now I'm right here in Busan, South Korea, where I am right near where Black Panther was jumping around on that car that one time.
Oh,
that's fucking awesome. What a list.
I don't know how we're going to get this into one episode. I have way too many questions already.
Let's go. Let it rip.
I already got the laundry list going.
Let it rip,
basically,
dude. Go for it.
anything I say, just say follow up, and I'll have a 10-minute story. But I won't launch into the 10-minute stories unless you ask, because I got a lot of them.
Oh, we're going into stories today. We're getting into it.
Yes.
All right.
Christian, I see your wheels spinning, and I see smoke coming out of your ears.
Just like how? Like I don't know. I know that's a very big question for just what, like 3 letters, but like how?
Yeah. Well, I never really planned on traveling. My plan for a long time was I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to work in animation and make comics. And the year that I graduated from animation school, in 2002 was the year that the entire animation industry got laid off. Everybody was laid off. The greatest animators in the world didn't have jobs, and I'm like, oh crap! I just went into decades of debt for a job that doesn't exist. Now it exists again in a different way, But at that moment, it's like, oh, I have no hope of doing anything with these skills. And then all of a sudden, I was complaining to a friend in Instant Messenger at like 2 a.m. And this is back when I'm so old. This is back when we used AOL
Yeah.
Instant Messenger to
You got
communicate.
that
Yes, I miss those
And
days.
and my friend's like, well, did you hear about this thing in Korea where they're so desperate for teachers right now? They'll buy you a plane ticket and have an apartment waiting for you and pay you to teach kids who already speak English how to speak it. And I'm like,
Oh, no
no,
shit.
but I'm going to do it. And I sent some emails. By 3 a.m. I had a job, and by 4 a.m.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, I should Google where Korea is. And
Never even heard of this place.
yeah, I mean, I'd heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Didn't know where it
Right.
was. And then I taught for a year in Korea, and I made comics while I was here, and I realized, wait a minute, I can make comics no matter where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And at
Mm.
the end of that trip, like I had built some friendship, like living in America, like I was an unpopular dork the entire time. And after a year in Korea,
You're on the right
I like,
podcast, buddy.
yeah, I had this going away party with like dozens and dozens of people who were like crying and were hugging, and like I'm
Yeah.
like, these are people that I will care about for the rest of my life. And I'm like, I love doing this. I'm gonna keep going.
Mhm.
And so I started moving to a new country every year.
Wow.
Wow.
And like countries in between and countries like while I'm there. And I just would go places and have experiences and make comics. And yeah, that's where a lot of those experiences came from. I just got it so into traveling. I would just move somewhere with zero research, zero plan, zero resources, to the point where like I would see a YouTube video about sloths and be like, I'm gonna move to Costa Rica next week. Why not? And
Damn.
but I also would have like zero planning would lead to like my sister would say, hey, I'm in Africa right now. My sister's a zoologist. She'd be like, I'm studying hyenas. When I'm finished, why don't you come meet me in Kenya or
Mhm.
Tanzania? I think she was in. No, yeah, she was in
Mm.
Kenya. And I'd be like, sure, no spoilers. And to me, no spoilers meant I'm like, tell me what airport to fly to and what
Yeah.
bus to get on. That's all I want to know.
Sure.
And then I get there and I'm like, oh, I don't know. Am I going to be on this bus for an hour? Am I going to be on this bus for 3 days?
Yeah.
And I ended up in the middle of the Masai Mara, which is like the town that I got off at. I found out is like the size of my bedroom, and it's like in the middle of a nature reserve
Yeah.
that like it's illegal to put like you go out with a guide, and it's illegal to go out without a trained guide, and you can't put your hand outside the window.
That's
And I
probably
didn't
smart.
know that. I didn't know that, so I just showed up and I'm like, oh, this town's small, I'll go for a walk. And I got lost in the Masai Mara for an entire day, nearly got
Oh
eaten by
my
lions.
God.
That's the level of like
Yeah.
uh unprepared I have. But I did that for like a decade, traveling all over. Now I've been pretty much settled in Korea after getting married to my wife Kim Hyun Suk, who I make books with. I've been settled here for like another 13 years. We still travel, but I'm not on the you know, after going to a new country every year and dozens of countries in between, I kind of like realized this is the place that I love, and I've settled here in
Okay.
Busan.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming there's a certain amount of travel fatigue that hits you when you're doing stuff like that, or are you just settled now because you're married and you're focused on your career, or?
Yeah, I mean, I love travel. Like I don't get travel fatigue. What fatigue I get is rebuilding my life from scratch fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when like when the first few times is like, oh wow, all new people to meet, all new experience, and then like all of a sudden on like the fourth or fifth country, you're like, oh, I just have no friends again. I'm back to being an
Yeah.
unpopular dork, and like all I have all these people out of the world that I
Yeah.
care about, but like I can just like talk to them on social media, but then I'm just like, oh, I'm here and I don't know anybody, and then after a year, I'm like, oh, I still don't know anybody because I'm getting too old to make new friends, an entire new social circle every year. So
Right.
yeah, that got kind of old. It's something that is fun to do, but not once per year.
Sure.
That is kind of a theme of our podcast a little bit of moving and especially new places. And especially now that we're like me and Damien are in our 30s, but like it's just hard to make friends in your 30s because like where do you
Yeah.
go? And like the whole thought of like the third space, especially here in America, of like there is no place to go because they've all been taken away.
Yeah.
I'm really good friends with a
And
lot of strippers. That's cool. They really seem to like me a lot.
Yeah, even like I said, I've been settled in Busan for like 13 years now. And I did the same thing where when I moved here to Busan, all of a sudden I built this amazing group of friends. There's an amazing like arts community here,
Mhm.
and it's so when I moved here, it was so tightly knit that like it was exactly I'm an art nerd. Like
Mhm.
that's what I do. I make
Yeah.
comics, but I also like before I came moved to Busan, I was obsessed with comics. But then when I
Mhm.
came here, all of a sudden, there's all these other art communities that's really tightly knit because it's like the foreign art community is just the right size that it's like there's a whole bunch of people who love making art, but
Mhm.
because they're here on teaching contracts, they can't legally do it for a living, and so they
Oh.
want to make art together. But it's small enough that it's like tightly knit. That like one night
Mhm.
I go to like storytelling open mic, and I like someone asked me to go on stage, and I even though I'd never done it before, I do it and I really enjoy it. And then someone's like, "Hey, since you're here, you're interested, why don't you do Shakespeare with us?" So I did that. And then from that
Mhm.
I got to do radio, and from that I got to do and then I started doing like events introducing how to make comics. And then like one of my friends, Jungmin Lee, made her first comic at that event, and it was one of my favorite comics I've ever read. And I got like
Nice.
one of my books, Occulted, I got myself fired and asked her to draw it because she's a better artist than me.
Yeah.
And so all of these different groups like kind of came together, and I built this really amazing community.
Mhm.
And then when the pandemic hit and like all these a
Mm.
lot in-person events stopped happening, like I just kind of waiting for all that to come back. And then when it did, I started going to events. I'm like, oh wait, I don't know anyone anymore because I live overseas where people come and live for a year. And
Mhm.
then like over I didn't notice that one by one everyone left, and there were no
Right.
going away parties, and I'm like, "Oh, it's like I moved to a new country again."
Yeah.
That's awesome. So clearly your mind is very creative. I mean, obviously with all the stuff that you've done, but taking it back a little bit because I feel like we jumped all the way up to
Mhm.
current life.
Mhm.
Taking it back, is it true that you started drawing and creating comics when you were a kid, like a little kid?
Yeah, I can't people always ask, "Why did you decide to become a cartoonist?"
Mhm.
And I'm like, That was before I could form memories or speak, so I can't really
Dang.
tell you." Because my
Yeah.
mom always jokes that, like, the reason I learned to talk is so I was desperate to tell her that I needed to become a professional cartoonist as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So it
Uh,
wasn't a decision.
I
That's just
Yeah.
how you were born essentially.
Yep, basically.
Wow.
And then eventually I decided I've been doing long enough. It's time to go pro. I was 6 years old at that point, and I just went to my parents and I'm like, "It's time." I went
Yeah.
to the library. I got
I'm
a
done
book
fucking
about
around here,
like
mom.
yeah, yeah. I got a book about how to pitch to newspaper syndicates, and I figured
Oh.
out how
Whoa.
many strips you need. I've done multiple drafts. I've got my pitch packet ready. I've got my like outline of future storylines, and I started sending it out to syndicates and newspapers and magazines.
Wow.
And only one newspaper answered me. It was our local newspaper, the Oakland Press, and they sent me this letter that just said, "Thanks for the submission. We'll keep your work on file." And that's
Okay.
their very polite way of saying, "Leave us alone, kid." But in my
Yeah.
mind, I'm like, I am in the filing cabinet. Like as soon as
Sure.
Jim
Yeah.
Davis dies, they're gonna be like, "Oh well, no more Garfield. Who's next? Oh, let's open the
Yeah.
filing cabinet. Let's get Ryan Estrada in here."
Well, that's
So
that's the key to being successful though, is not taking no for an answer where you're like,
Mhm.
that
yeah,
was essentially a no, and you were like, "Hey, I'm in,
yeah,
baby. Let's go. Let's
yeah,
keep going."
yeah,
That's
and
an incredible mindset to have. How
yeah, and
long were
that
you
that
submitting to them?
well, I kept submitting to the same newspaper every year for a decade, and they finally got sick of me and hired me when I was 16.
Wow.
And
Nice.
that no, that not taking no, like I didn't know I was not taking no. I thought I was waiting, but like
Yeah.
in
Sure.
that whole 10 years of pitching, I got really lucky that there's no one that told me, "Kid, you're 6, you can't do this." Like, my
Right.
parents, my teachers, the
Yeah.
librarians I was talking to, the newspaper was polite, like, everyone was like, "Yeah, sure, let's see what happens." And that's kinda what I think what gave me the confidence that I'm like, "Whatever, I can go to a country I've never been in
Mhm.
and have, like, a comics career that makes no money and, like, survive." I
Sure.
just kind of I mean, like, still like, living in Michigan, I was still a very anxiety-ridden kid. Like, I was always stressed out about everything, like, worrying about what could go wrong. But, traveling is kinda what cured me of that. It was the very first trip. Um, I mentioned when I moved to Korea, and, the way it worked in Korea at that point is you'd move there first and start working, and then they'd worry about how to make it legal that you were working there.
Whoa,
Um,
interesting.
you'd Yeah, I mean, you'd work for, like, a month, and then they'd send you on a visa run. You had to change your visa in Japan. You couldn't change your visa in Korea. I
Oh,
don't know why
interesting.
they did it that way at that point, but
Did
every
you
teacher went through the visa run.
just go in with, like, just a tourist visa, and then they're like
Yeah,
I'm guessing that was only, like, a month for the tourist
yeah,
visa or something, and then they're
Yeah,
like,
30
"Okay,
days
now
usually.
now we'll figure this out."
yeah.
Interesting.
I think it was 90 days,
Okay.
for the
Oh,
tourist
okay.
visa, but while you were there, they'd get all your paperwork together, then you go to Japan and fill out the paperwork. And so that trip to Japan was the one that really changed my mindset on everything, because I had just graduated college, I had just moved overseas, I had no money, I hadn't been
Yeah.
paid yet because I wasn't legally working yet, hadn't
Yeah.
been there for a month. Um, so I go there with, I'm pretty sure I have enough for one night in Japan, if I'm careful. And then, the next morning, I found out that, the price of the visa had gone up $10,
Oh, no.
Oh.
Did not account for
and I
this.
didn't have the $10. And so, it was a wild thing where I also had the flu, and so I was
Oh,
running all over the city trying to find, a way to get $10. I wasn't sure if I have $10 in my American bank account, but also you couldn't use an international card in Japan at that time, except for certain banks, and
Mhm.
nobody was sure what bank you could use it at, and they kept directing me to other banks, like, on the other side of the city, but I didn't have money for a bus. I was running across the
Yeah.
oh
city
my
with the flu
god.
and, throwing up in fountains and stuff, and, um eventually, I couldn't get $10, so I sold my Game Boy for $10 that I had just bought.
Aw.
Wow.
It was like a Game Boy Advance, like, it was brand
Mhm.
new, and I sold it for $10 and went across, and, I
How shitty would it
um
be if when you get there with your new $10, they're like, "Actually, it's 20." I
It
coulda
it
sold
yeah,
that
it
for 20 bucks.
yeah.
it went up
Well, that
again.
actually okay, so I was shortening the story, but actually the reason that I was so, desperate is that my school, they didn't want me to miss class, so they sent me on a holiday, and it didn't occur to them that the Korean consulate closes on Korean holidays. So, actually, when I went the
Oh,
next day, they were closed, and so I had to
no.
delay my flight and go the next day. So, I was already short because I had to stretch my one day into 2 days,
Yeah.
and I get there, and they're like, "Okay, your visa will be ready this afternoon," and I'm like, "My flight leaves at 12," and they're like, "Sorry." They're like, "If you
Man.
get the $10, maybe we'll have it done before your flight." I got the
Mhm.
$10, I go up there, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna have it before 12, just whatever." So I had to delay my flight another day, and then after that, there was one of the biggest typhoons that Japan had ever had,
Oof.
and all the flights were canceled. And so, I I should have asked for more than $10 for my Game
Yeah.
Boy, but I had 10 minutes left, and, I was desperate. So I ended up having to walk to the airport, and then my idea is I'll sleep in the airport,
Mhm.
but I didn't know that the Fukuoka airport closes at, 11 PM,
Ugh.
and then all
Oh.
of a sudden, they're like, "Yeah," they turn off the lights, like, "Man, you gotta go," and I'm like, "But there's the worst typhoon Japan has had in
Yeah.
decades there," and they're like, "I don't care, you gotta go." I have no
Wow.
money for a taxi, all the buses are done, I have no money for a bus, and of course, airports are in the middle of nowhere. It's like highway.
Mhm.
So I'm just
Sure.
walking along the highway and with the flu, with no money, in the middle of a typhoon where trees are falling over, and
Mm.
I'm eventually I found a park where a bunch of homeless people are sleeping, and I'm like, if there were a better place for me to be right now, these people would be there. So I
Mhm.
grabbed a park bench, and I'm lying there sick, being rained on, hoping a tree doesn't fall
Yeah.
on me and I die. And I'm sitting there feeling so sorry for myself, thinking this is one of the worst experiences of my life.
It's like in
And
a television show where, like, the record scratches. It's like, "You
yeah,
might be wondering how I got
yeah,
myself into this situation,"
yeah.
kinda moment.
So So I'm thinking like this is literally the worst moment of my life. And while I'm feeling sorry for myself, this little kitten comes and sits on my chest and curls up and goes to sleep.
Oh,
And all of a sudden it became just surreal enough that I'm like, wait a minute, this is the worst moment of my life. And I'm friggin' fine. What have I been worried about my
Mhm.
entire life? If
damn,
like this can happen and I survive it. And then
that
when I
is
got
such
back,
a good
yeah,
point. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
yeah, I ended up stranded in Japan for another week with no money because all the flights were canceled. And then
Oh.
once I got back, I'm like, I've been telling this story for 25 years since then. And I'm like,
Yeah.
my currency is stories. Like that's
Mhm.
what I make my living off of. And they make my work better. Why am I worrying about what's going to happen? And now when I travel, it's like, if I go somewhere and everything's great, I'm like, that was great, but kind of boring. I'm
Yeah.
disappointed. But if things go horribly, horribly wrong, I'm
Mhm.
like, yes, material.
That's
So
dude,
like
that
I
is
have,
that is exactly how
yeah,
we are too, where it's
Yeah.
like we need unfortunate things to happen to have something to talk
yeah,
about. Comedians do the same thing where
Mhm.
they're like, "Yeah, it sucked, but hey, I got 15 minutes out of it." You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like if you switch
Mhm.
your mindset to that, truly bad things that happen to you are actually so much easier to handle.
yeah. That completely changed my brain chemistry, and that I
Mhm.
have not been stressed since. And
That's
it
amazing.
drives my wife crazy because when things go wrong, I get so excited. And she's like,
Yeah.
will you
You're just
solve this
taking
problem?"
notes.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, let's see, is this going to be a comic or is it going to be stand up or is it going to be a podcast? What am I going to do with this? This is good.
Yeah, and this is where the cat comes in.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That is so surreal, man. So it's kind of poignant to say that because one of the questions that we always ask people is, do you feel like leaving your hometown and exploring is important for truly finding yourself and your capabilities? And it sounds like hands down, that's true for you.
Yeah, for me, like I'm a very different person than I ever would have been if I hadn't started traveling. And I don't think that means everyone needs to, but I think that you don't need to give up your life and move to a new country every year, but I think everyone should travel somewhere. And I
Mhm.
really hope that people travel somewhere in an unplanned way. Like I know a lot of people who go on, like I've been on package tours, but like if your only travel experience is going on a package tour, you're
Mhm.
not going to learn anything about yourself.
Yep.
Uh and I also know people that like when their parents come to visit them and wherever I was living at that point, they'd be like, yeah, they came and stayed in an American chain hotel. They
Yeah.
went across the street to eat at McDonald's and watched Fox News on the TV. And
Mhm.
I met them at the hotel bar, and it's like, why did you come to this country? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you go somewhere and get lost, I think getting lost is the main thing that helps you
Mhm.
uh learn about yourself. If you know
Yep.
where you're going to go and you know what's going to happen and you're not meeting people unexpectedly, you're not having to solve problems, you're not going to learn anything about yourself. But even if you do that in your own town, you're going to learn something about yourself. I like one of my favorite things, like I've been in Busan long enough now that I can't get lost and it stresses me out.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll just one of my favorite things sometimes is I'll just give myself random directions and I'll just write down like go straight, turn left, go to the first bus stop, get on the first bus that comes, stay for 20 stops, get off and make these turns. And now when I do that in Busan, I'm still like, oh, I know exactly where I am. But
Yeah.
I do that like in towns that I'm trying to explore or something, or just like I've never been on this street. Let's go down here. Just do that. If you like, traveling doesn't mean you need to like go into debt. Go
Mhm.
to a neighborhood you've never been before. Get on a bus you've never been on before, and just see where it takes you.
Yeah. No, I think kinda like what you were talking about of growing you always see that moment where you're like, "I'm about to break down and cry."
Yeah.
I think you need to have that while you're it sounds like you sleeping on the bench in Japan was that moment, but, like, once you overcome that, you're like, "It can't get worse," right?
Yeah. Yeah, and when I draw comics about the experience, I'm usually, like, drawing myself looking really stressed and, like, and
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm.
but that's just because if I just drew myself, like, wryly smiling at the experience in every panel, I would look like a sociopath and it'd be a boring comic.
Yeah.
But, but really, I'm just like, you know, that Japan story, I was stressed as hell, but, like,
Mhm.
Right.
everything since then, I'm just like Oh, that's cool. And it really has made my comics more interesting because, like, the comic that I got published when I was 16 that I mentioned, it was about an orange cat who's too lazy to chase mice. And that was because my only life experiences was sitting at home reading Garfield and being like, I'm gonna make comics one day.
Sure.
But once I started having experiences and meeting people, then I'm like, oh, there's other things to talk about
Mhm.
besides orange cats who are too lazy to chase mice. Nobody told me this.
With you, like, it sounded like kind of a drop of the hat that you decided to go to South Korea. Were there, like, your friends and family being like, "Don't do that," or was everyone like, it sounds like you have very supportive parents
Yeah.
from your, talking about pursuing illustrations, but, like, was anyone like, "Hey, don't do that. Stay here."
No, nobody. I'm sure maybe in people's minds they were like, "This is a fragile boy. He is not going to survive." but I toughened myself up real quick
Uh-huh.
by being really dumb and throwing myself into bad situations. But yeah, everybody was very supportive, and my mother has always been like very supportive even when it stressed her the hell out because like the stories she started being like, tell me the stories after because I
Yeah.
would just like well, one of the things that happened in Japan is that also like I had no way to contact anyone.
Oh, yeah.
um but at the airport there was a computer terminal where you could check your email, but it cost like $5 for like 5 minutes or something like that.
Mhm.
I forget how much it was, but it was a lot for like a very short period of time. And I finally like I had just enough to put into that. There was like a like you put a coin in it,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
computer was so old and so many people had used it that it was just like the slowest computer you've ever seen in your life. And it took 4 minutes and 30 seconds to open my email and log
No.
in. And then I'm like there's a little like timer, like a bomb in a movie that's like
Mhm.
counting down and like, trapped in Japan, no money, 7 dimensional typhoon, not sure what you can do, sent. And then it goes out and I'm like, I didn't even log out of my email. Uh-oh. Oh well, I don't have another $5. And my mother just gets this email like, what?
It reminds
That's
me of those
so
old
funny.
commercials for, like, click calls, like, "Hi, it's Bob. It's the
Yeah,
boy."
yeah,
Kind of. Yeah,
basically,
I'm
yeah.
very curious because you traveled, like, really, like, at the cusp of the internet becoming a thing and, like, smartphones and, like, I can't imagine, like, for me personally, of, like, traveling like that. How was it traveling back then? Like, it sounds like you prefer it that way of not knowing, like, you didn't have
Yeah.
GPS, like,
Mhm.
I don't know if MapQuest was a thing at that point and, like, how that has changed with traveling since like, now that we have, like, a computer in your pocket at all
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, when I was doing all that, I did not have a smartphone. I did not have data roaming. I didn't have anything. I would if there was an internet cafe, I could go there and pay to use it.
Mm,
Um, but, uh but yeah, like I said, I knew nothing when I went to most places, and I
yeah.
ended up, like I mentioned, getting thrown out of a moving train in India by the police, like because I'm so dumb. Like, just I was making really ridiculous mistakes and getting completely lost. I remember like traveling around India, um, uh, like it would just be like a lot of places, just like you walk around until there's a guy with a sign that says he's going to the place you want to go to, and you're
Huh?
like, yeah, and then like um, one of the places I went in India was Dharamshala, which is where the Dalai Lama lives.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
then
right.
like, um, and then I'm like, uh, you just get like a guy who's going in a car, and and then you find out that like the road to it, there's up days and there's down days because there's only like the road is only enough for mostly one car. Like the car,
Yeah.
there's some places where it's like, is the car gonna fit? But
Yeah.
and I'm like, and it's like you feel like you're gonna die every moment.
Yeah.
And then because there's no internet and I can't research anything, then it's like, oh, I gotta leave now. I got work tomorrow, or I got work in 2 days. It's gonna take me 2 days to get there.
Mhm.
And I try to go down like, oh, today's an up day. You can't go down. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh
And then
god.
one guy's like, I'll go down. And I'm like, how? He's like, I'll figure it. We got some people going. And I get in there and it's like you really feel like you're gonna die because he's like zipping around
Mhm.
like going in little divots where he can go, and then as soon as nobody's there, he guns it, and it's like there is a drop down a mountain if his
Mhm.
tire
Yeah,
goes this far in the wrong direction, and he's gunning it because he's like got to get to the next divot before the
Mhm.
next up car comes. And then
sure.
like the military started chasing us and rear-ended us and like broke the window. And as the
What?
military's looking at us, I got so sick after they broke the window, I puked out the back. And like these are the things that happen when you don't know what's gonna when
Yeah.
how you're gonna do anything. You can't book this stuff online. You just show up and you find out what's gonna happen.
I
Do
can't
you
get that
I
on
loved
Viator?
traveling that way. Yeah, I absolutely love traveling that way and not knowing what's happening and making mistakes.
Yeah, and, like but I guess with some of that as, like I guess I'm probably more risk averse than Damien is of, like, is there like, I don't wanna say confirmation bias, but of, like, were there times where you're like, "I'm not sure if I'm gonna make it out," or, like, do you feel, like, lucky in some situations or anything like that? Or do you just have, like me and Damien talk about, like, do you have a good gut check where you're just like if you're like, "Oh, this feels off," and get out of there as quickly as possible?
My brain was so broken by surviving all of the experiences. I've been
Yeah.
lucky that like I've had a lot of horrible things happen to me, but they've all happened to me
Right.
and I could laugh about them. Like so I just I I have a lot of stories that end
Yeah.
with and I almost died or begin with
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I almost died because I have been very lucky in the things that I have survived.
Yeah.
And I'm just throwing myself into situations that I should not have been in. But yeah, that like, being lost in the Masai Mara, that was really bad. Like
Yeah.
when I found when I finally got back to civilization after that, after being lost, I found out there was like a search party forming to come get me because my sister had found out I had arrived and was missing. And they're like, where were you? And I'm like, I went for a walk. They're like, you can't go for a walk. I'm like, I did.
I did.
And
You
they
mentioned
and then
you
they
mentioned
yeah.
something a little earlier that I wanted to go back to because you mentioned where, your mom's really supportive, but then she mentioned, "Just tell me the story after some time has passed." And it made me think like Christian and I have done that, but we're thinking about it from in the Midwest where it's like I told her I was going to Christian's house, but I was actually getting, drunk in a cornfield somewhere. And
Yeah.
yours seems a little bit more high stakes. And it made me think, what was your mom's reaction to, and what is the story behind you getting kidnapped? Because you mentioned it and then glossed right over it. I need to know
Let's
what
see.
happened with kidnapping, and did you tell your mom that story?
And I guess I'll follow up with it. If that is not the most risky or, like, where you felt the luckiest, what is that story?
Mhm.
Kinda two-parter question.
Um Let me see. Yeah, so that was when I was volunteering in Thailand, and I had to leave the country every month for a visa run. And
Right.
so one of the times I went to Cambodia. And again, it's that thing where you can't just book a ticket. I would go to Bangkok and walk around until someone said they're going to Cambodia, and they all have their little signs of like
Mhm.
what kind of vehicle they're taking. And this one guy, he's like, we have a VIP luxury bus. And I'm like, okay, like how much is it? He's like, look at how nice I'm like, I don't care, I travel cheap, just tell me how much it is.
Yeah.
And he's showing
Mhm.
me all these pictures of like the VIP bus and his air conditioning and sleeper things. And I'm like, great, how much is it? He's like, $5. And I'm like, great, let's do it. I give him $5. And then he goes, wait here. And then this luxury VIP bus pulls up. I get on it. The luxury VIP bus pulls into the parking lot, and he says, okay, everybody get out and get in this car. So
Oh,
like
geez.
his trick was, I
Lure.
said you would be on a luxury VIP bus. I didn't say it would be only for a block. And then
Sure.
we get into this like really, really crappy bus. And then that really, really crappy bus drives us across the border. And then he says, get out. And they split us up into like two crappy vans. And then every time, and again, when you book tickets back then, they would be like, this is your destination. They wouldn't tell you how long it's going to take you to get
Yeah.
there.
Sure.
And if you had a car and went yourself, it might have been a 3-hour trip, but this took 24 hours because they
Oh
keep
my god.
Jesus.
and then like eventually they like we keep kicking us out and getting us into worse vehicles. And then at one point they stop and they're like, all right, we're going to change vehicles again, and my cousins are going to drive us, but they're sleeping right now because it's 3 a.m. So we're just going to wait here until they wake up.
Oh
And we
my
just park in
god.
front of their cousin's house. And and we're just sitting on this bus, like we're like we cannot sleep on this bus because now we're like packed in like shoulder
Yeah.
to shoulder, like 8 people in a 3-person seat, and we're waiting for their cousins to wake up. Their cousins wake up at like 10 a.m.
Jeez.
And then the finally at 10 a.m. or I forget what time it was, but like one of the cousins comes out and like, okay, the first van is leaving now. And everybody wants to go, and he's like,
Yeah.
this guy needs to leave right now because he doesn't have a driver's license, so he needs to leave before the cops come. And everybody's like, no, I don't want to go on this one, but some people went. And so I'm waiting for the later guy. And then my cousin comes out like 2 hours later, and we're all sitting in the van. We're like, oh man, we can't wait to leave. And he gets in the car. He walks out to the car. He is clearly the highest person that has ever existed on the earth. And he like gets in the car and just like stares forward silently for like a minute, and we're all looking at each other like, what is happening? And then he like gets out of the car and walks back in the house without a word. We're like,
Well,
we're all freaked out. And you can tell when this story happened by what I'm about to say. But I was in the front seat, and I go, he was gonna start the bus, but then he got high. And then someone in the back seat went, didn't mean to cause no fuss, but then he got high. And then all of a sudden, like you know how in musicals, like everybody just knows the words and everybody sings together, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's impossible. We were all so stressed that literally that happened in the car, and we all started doing a completely improvised musical between strangers about this high driver, and we start laughing and laughing, and he comes back and gets in the car and starts it, and we're like, oh, it's not funny anymore. Oh crap.
Yep. Everybody quiet.
And
that's
then
trauma bonding.
That is
Yeah.
trauma bonding.
And then like this guy's driving us, and like the road is so bumpy that like we're in the air more than we're on the ground. And we're all like ready to puke. And then he stops in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, this is where you need to change your money. And he's like, my sister-in-law or whatever runs this place. You need to change your money to local currency. And we're all like, okay, we'll do it later. Like, no, you need to change your money now. We all changed our money. Later found out that not only had they given us the worst exchange rate you could ever, like by hundreds, like terrible exchange rate. We lost all our money. But also later we found out that nobody in Cambodia uses Cambodian money. They all take dollars.
Oh my god.
So they just completely ripped us off and basically like stole hundreds of dollars from us, and then changed us to another vehicle. And then eventually we get there at like midnight the next night. But we don't get there. They stop at midnight the next day and like, okay, you're staying at this hotel. And we're like, what do you mean? We're going to the capital city. And they're like, nope, this is where the bus stops. My mom runs this hotel. You're gonna stay at my mom's hotel. And we're like, no, we're not. And they're screaming at us, you have to like, this is where the kidnapping comes in. They would not let us leave. And they like, we can see the city like in the distance,
Like
it's
within
probably
walking
like
distance.
yeah, I mean like within 2-3 hours walking distance.
Okay.
Sure.
We can see tall buildings on the horizon, and they wouldn't let us leave. And all of us, so we're like, fine, we're walking, and these two drivers and their elderly mother holding their arms out and like pushing us into the hotel and wouldn't let us leave. We had to shove an old woman out of the way to escape and run.
What were they trying to do? What were they trying to do?
They were trying to force us to pay his mother to stay at the hotel.
But
Yeah.
they gave you bullshit money. What are you supposed to do?
With what little money we have left, we're supposed to give it all to his mom.
Crazy, dude.
And so like they're chasing us, and all of a sudden like these rickshaw drivers, there's like this army of like 20 rickshaw drivers that come behind. It's like, get in, we'll take you. But we don't trust anyone at this point. And the way they came, they're like, we don't know if they work for this guy too. Are they going to kidnap us? So we're just like, I think in our vehicle at the end there was like 20 people, and there's 20 of us running with these 3 people chasing us, and like 20 rickshaws being like screaming profanity, like, get in, like,
oh my
we just
god,
ran for like 2 hours until we reached the town we were trying to get to.
Wow.
And then my follow-up question for that is like, okay, so realistically that's an insane story. It's so stressful at the time. you're getting pulled this way, you're getting pulled that way. But in the long run, when you think about it, all that really happened was you got scammed out of money.
Yeah.
In that mindset, do you actually trust people a little bit more because of that? Because like if that was America or Mexico or something, you wouldn't ever come back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still incredibly trusting of people. Like um, I survived that situation. I wasn't hurt. I have
Yeah,
the story is worth what I spent on it.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, I still had a great trip. I mean, like I had a similar situation in Mexico where someone tried to mug me.
hmm
Um, I I had I was going to somewhere in America and I decided like flying was too expensive, so I took a bus to what is it called, Juarez?
Mhm.
That I just went there as to what the border was, didn't know anything about it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, my I gotta, the bus arrives like in the middle of the night, but I'll just walk around until morning and I can get another bus. Didn't know, like that was before I'd seen movies where like
Mhm.
Juarez was like the place
Yeah.
where like they hang bodies from bridges
Mhm.
and like
hmm
didn't know it. So I'm just like, I'll just walk around Juarez at 3 a.m. to do. And
Sometimes ignorance is bliss, right?
yeah,
That's
And
true.
those
well, yeah. Well, about like I'm walking around and finally about like 6, 7 a.m. I'm walking down the street and this guy comes up to me and he starts trying to mug me in Spanish. So I'm just like, I'll pretend I don't speak Spanish and keep
Yeah,
walking. And so this guy, he does not have a weapon, but he
Okay.
comes up to me and he goes, he's like getting frustrated. And he points at me, you money, me money, no. And then he like, uh, people listening, um, mimes karate chopping me in the neck and says, muerte.
He should have
I'll
used
So
chop you to death.
basically,
Crave
if you don't give me
Manga.
money,
Crave manga.
yeah, yeah. If you don't give me money, I will karate chop you in the neck until you're dead. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend I still don't understand him and be like, "Oh, you study karate? That's cool. I used to live in Korea. I studied taekwondo." And then I just started like talking about my travels and just
Mhm.
kept walking. And he's like, "No, no, money, no, money, muerte." And so I just pretended like I thought he was my best friend and just kept on talking until finally, like, everything's closed at this point. I walked for like 30 minutes until all of a sudden all the stores started opening. And I said, "Hey, man, there's a market. I'm going to go get a torta for breakfast. You want a torta? I'll buy you a torta." And he goes, "Ugh," and walked away.
Just
So I just,
clearly cannot be bothered.
Yes.
yeah, he's just like, how do you not understand this? And like, I mean, I wasn't scared because he was like a foot and a half shorter than me and had to get on his tippy toes to threaten to karate chop me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
But
can't even
like,
reach my neck.
yeah, but also like, I mean, I had stupidly survived enough situations that I'm just like, I'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this isn't how I go.
Yeah. Versus one of our different guests, Mike Burns, where someone had a knife and he's like, "What are you gonna do? Stab me?" And the guy stabbed
The
him.
guy did stab him. Shout out Mike Burns. So that's as good of a segue as I can think of for my next question, and I'm just going to go right into it. You have a history with Vladimir Putin?
Um, yeah, we haven't met, but I did. So years ago, I was the official cartoonist for a website called LiveJournal. As we're mentioning old
Right.
internet things, there was
Yeah, I remember that.
the fancy old fashioned social media was called LiveJournal,
Mhm.
and I posted comics there, and I did a comics about their mascot Frank the Goat, and eventually I found out. Eventually, the company got sold to someone in Russia, and I'm like, oh, do I have a job anymore? Do I work for you? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know who to contact, so I just kind of stopped the comic. And then, like many, many years later, I was listening to a podcast and they talked about LiveJournal. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, hey, I used to make comic for them. And I learned that the reason it moved to Russia was that LiveJournal had been used by a lot of activists in Russia for organizing, especially like
Oh.
LGBTQ activists.
Yeah.
And Putin demanded that LiveJournal hand over all their addresses and names. LiveJournal
Oh.
said no. So he had one of his friends buy the company and move the servers to Russia so that he could then crack down on everyone who would
Mhm.
ever say anything bad about him on there.
Mhm.
And I'm like, crap, man, I was part of this. And suddenly I realized, oh, wait, I still have a contract that says I can make comics featuring their mascot, and I still have the login to post it to their official website.
Nice.
So I made one last comic calling out Putin and
Mhm.
explaining what had happened, and then having having two of the main characters come out as a lesbian couple in that comic,
Nice.
post it to their official website, and then like BBC interviewed me about it and all this stuff,
Wow.
and
No shit.
they never took the comic down. It's still there. I never heard from anyone there, but I wonder, like, if I ever travel to Russia, is a little
Yeah.
light going to appear on a computer and be like, just grab them. Nobody
Yeah.
remembers why, but there's just
Just do it.
grab them.
There's a
Yeah.
file with your name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I did my other experience with Putin is that just recently I was an extra in a K drama where I played
Oh, cool.
a UN ambassador, and they shot it in an actual building that was built for like the a diplomatic meeting where I was sitting in Putin's actual chair.
Whoa.
Ooh.
They like covered up Putin's placard with like
Mhm.
my character's country. And so yeah, I have two mini experiences with Putin. Never met him. Don't I
Mhm.
doubt he has any idea who I am, but someone under him probably put me in a you know
In
little
a
document.
list.
That's so funny. So wait, so you've sorry, Christian, I know you have a question, but
No, go
you
for it.
said you were playing an ambassador on a K-drama, but didn't you also say during your introduction you are or were some type of ambassador in real life? What the hell does that
Yeah,
mean?
I was a student ambassador to Australia. That's not really a thing anymore, but back then there was a student ambassadorship program that worked with the U.S. government, and they would like send kids to other countries. And I went to Australia, and we traveled all up and down the coast, and like for a big chunk of it, we got to do a homestay, go to an Australian
Mm.
school, meet the mayor, and like do cultural
Oh, cool.
exchanges and things. And that was one of those experiences where like everything was planned and organized down to the second.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm going back to Australia this year, and I'm
Yeah.
so
Nice.
excited to have a real experience
Yeah.
and do something. But yeah, I ended up doing a book series called Student Ambassador that is what I wished had happened when I was a kid. Of like, what if I got into huge trouble and like
Yeah.
had to solve an international incident? Um, but yeah, I was a student ambassador, and then later I played in the K drama Tempest. I played the UN ambassador from Turkey.
Mm.
Uh, I was sitting. My name is Ryan Estrada. I'm Mexican American. I was sitting next to the white guy who was playing the Mexican ambassador, and I'm like, "Hey, can we switch?" And they said no. And it turned out it didn't matter because they edited they cast people to play every single member of the UN
Mhm.
and moved the entire production to another city so they could rent an actual diplomatic building, costumed us all, made me shave my beard, and so that they could film us watching the main character give a speech. And then that speech appeared in every episode, but the camera was always on her face in front of a blue curtain, and they never showed any of us watching. And it's like, you could have saved so much money.
Yeah.
Technically I wasn't cropped out because uh in the third episode where that shot appears, there's a character watching it on YouTube, and in the YouTube
Mhm.
suggested videos that are like 3 pixels on the screen, there is a shot of the room where you can see the back of my head.
Yeah.
And
There
not
you
only did that
go.
make it in the show, that made it in the trailer. So
Hey.
I played the UN ambassador Turkey in that show in a still frame silhouette back of my head that's 2 pixels tall.
Hey, that counts.
That it
It
does.
does.
How did you get on, like, a K-drama? Like, how did that like, have you ever acted before this or, like, anything like that? Like, how did I know you said you were, like, part of the
Mhm.
arts community in
Mhm.
your town, is that how that came about?
I think you're signed by
Well,
WME, aren't you?
yeah, WME handled me for books. With the K drama, basically K dramas in Korea, if you see a white person, it means they saw a YouTube post, or they saw a Facebook post. There's just a Facebook group where they say, "Hey, we need someone on this day," the blah blah blah, and you just say, "Hey, I'm there," and it's whoever didn't have to teach English that day.
That's so funny.
It is very easy to
One
do.
white guy, please.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have done a lot of I am not an actor, but I've
Mhm.
done a lot of acting just because like I love throwing myself into new experiences. And like
Sure.
a lot of the things I've done come from this challenge I gave myself at one point called the Not My Jam challenge,
Mm.
Oh.
where uh if I catch myself turning down an opportunity because it's not my jam, not the kind of thing I do,
Mhm.
I have to do it. It's not like Jim
Sure.
Carrey
Oh.
Yes Man where like if it's too expensive, if I don't have time, if I'm morally opposed to it,
Mhm.
I can absolutely turn things down. But if I have no other reason, then that's not the kind of thing I do. I have to do it.
Mhm.
And so that's why I did that first like open mic and told a story on stage. That's why I did radio. That's why I did Shakespeare and all these things that like I did just because of this personal challenge. I'm like, oh, I actually enjoy doing this. And sometimes, I'm not a good actor and I'm not good at a lot of things I do, but
Mhm.
like when your career is making art and you like really have to think about like is the editor going to like this or the reader's going to
Mhm.
like this, is this good enough? Like it's nice to do a form of art where you don't have to give a damn at all
Mhm.
and be like, I
Sure.
kind of suck at this, but who cares?
I mean,
Mhm.
Like
showing up is
especially like
most of it.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, especially working as an extra, like how badly can you mess up sitting in the background going, as someone gives a
Right.
speech?
Mm.
Like, you're fine.
That's so cool, man. Because I not to take the spotlight off of what you just said, but I'm doing a very similar thing. And Christian and I have talked about this on this podcast recently, where I'm in a very similar stage in my life where, my wife and I moved halfway across the country about 8 years ago to Los Angeles. And we did it at the drop of a hat, really no money in our bank account, no plans, just kind of seeing what's going on. And since moving here, I haven't really done much of anything. And I was like, if I'm going to be in Los Angeles, I got to start doing something with it. Like
Yeah.
just going to work every day and clocking out and watching TV. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? So I've recently entered that era of my life. I've done like improv show and I've started doing voiceover acting and shit. Like I'm just like, I mean, why not? Why the hell
Yeah.
not? So it's funny that you said that. I was like, damn, dude, we're kind of on the same page with that. And it's really fun to just, I don't know, go for it. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I think letting yourself potentially be bad at something is
Mhm.
just as enlightening as getting lost, like even more
Yeah.
so.
Hmm.
Like, because that really changed. Like the first time I went on stage and told it was probably one of the stories I've already told here today. I don't remember which one it was, but I went up and I told a story, but like I had never been on stage before. Like I was telling things and like I wasn't telling it in a funny way. I was
Hmm.
probably giving way too much detail in some parts, skimming over
Mhm.
other parts, and I was awkward and probably not speaking clearly and doing a horrible job. And I'm like, I start walking off stage and I'm like, oh, that sucked. And someone comes and goes, hey man, thanks for doing that. And I realize like,
Mhm.
oh wait, like nobody booed, nobody cares. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do better, but no one's sitting there like nitpicking everything I did. They're just like,
No.
hey, a guy told the story, great.
Yeah.
And then
And
I'm
you're not a
like, oh,
professional with it, at least not
yeah,
Yeah.
yet, you know?
yeah. And so like, and that like I realized like, oh, I can keep doing, and I've kept doing it to the point that like now I travel in the world like doing stage like storytelling stage shows. I've been
Mhm.
on the Moth, I've been on Risk podcast because like
Mhm.
I enjoy doing that. Uh and yet now I teach a class sometimes when I do like library and school visits
Mm.
where I kind of give kids that same experience where like I start off with a bad storytelling contest
Mhm.
where I'll like just give them a book to read. But first, I'll be like, what are you afraid of happening? Like all the kids have stage fright. What are you afraid you're going to do wrong? And I'll make a
Mhm.
list on the board. I'll be like, okay, we're going to play a game where you're going to try and make as many of these mistakes as possible. And we as the audience are going to guess what
Mhm.
mistake you're making. And whoever
Oh.
makes the most mistakes wins. And all of a sudden, they're like, I can make mistakes, and they get there, and the shyest kid in the world will just ham it up, and the
Mhm.
audience
Mhm.
is literally judging them to their face, and they enjoy it so much that like I've had like people break down crying after that thing because they're um like either the kids like I've never been able to talk in front of a crowd.
Mhm.
I was in a school once. I was like in like a first grade classroom in Michigan, and I did that same thing with the kids, and there was this one girl that, like, did that and then was just hamming it up, like, every time I volunteered doing anything, that girl would jump up and be, like, hamming it up. And afterward, I go up to the teacher and I'm like, "That kid was a ham, huh?" And the teacher started crying and is like,
Oh.
Whoa.
"I have never heard that child speak. Like, we've had meetings about it. Her parents have been here like
Mhm.
several times because she's nonverbal in my classroom. How did you do that?" And it's just like, let you know, the permission to make mistakes
Mhm.
Hmm.
is all you need to like get over so many things in your life.
Well,
Yeah.
and that exercise is so cathartic, I'm sure, for
Mhm.
people who have that kind of fear, because it's one of those things where I used to have that fear until I started getting involved in, competitive speech and debate and competitive acting in high school and all this stuff. And it's like I was terrified. And then facing your fear is really the only way to conquer it. But getting that into your head and letting
Yeah.
that take over the anxiety is so hard for people. So the fact that you're like, okay, so what are you afraid of? Let's put it on a board so it's tangible,
Mhm.
and then do those things that you're afraid of, because you're not doing it by accident, you're doing it on purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And therefore you're facing it right up front as opposed to accidentally stumbling into it, which is the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's
at the end,
really
everybody
brilliant.
claps for him and they're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
survived it. Great."
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really fucking brilliant, man. I think that's something that should actually take on a life of its own and be more widespread, because the fear of public speaking and the fear of performing is really something that could be dampening potential talent for the future. So that's
Mhm.
a really, really great initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't need to take it as extreme as me and just like not be afraid to clash with the police on a train, not be afraid to wander out with lions. Like, you don't need to go that far. My brain is
Yeah.
broken, and
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to be alive. But don't be afraid to try something new.
That's a good point. And something else that you tried and were successful at, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you invent a word?
Ooh.
I didn't try to do that, but basically, so I did this thing once where I forget how many it was. It ended up being like 50 or 100 guest comics for different strips that all launched in the same
Mm.
day unannounced. Um, and the idea was like, if whoever read web comics, no matter what site they went to, all of a sudden there's a strip by Ryan Estrada and they'd be confused. I thought it'd be
Yeah.
funny. And
Mhm.
it took like months of work to prepare for this. And it got to the point where like I was literally working 24 hours a day, including in my sleep, because I would work all day, go to bed, and then like while I was in my dream, I would go back to my desk and continue working. And then the first day I woke up and I'm like, "Oh crap, all the work's gone," because it was imaginary. But then the next night I did the same thing and I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't what my room looks like. I'm dreaming, aren't
Mhm.
I? Okay, if I
Mhm.
draw, it's going to disappear, but if I write a script, I can maybe
Mhm.
still remember it. So I'd spend all night like writing drafts of comics and I'd be like, remember, okay, panel 1, he does this, panel 2, okay,
Mhm.
okay. And I wake up and be like, I still remember it, and I draw it.
Wow.
So a lot of comics that I had no memory of writing,
Mhm.
no memory of drawing, uh launched them all, forgot about them.
Mhm.
And then several years later, it was actually my, like, 40th no, not 40, it was my birthday, some milestone birthday,
Mhm.
and, all of a sudden, like, my Twitter mentions were blowing up, and I'm like, "Oh, people no, they're not wishing me a happy birthday, what are they talking," and they're talking about fashion, and I'm like, "Are they making fun of me? They're making fun of my old man fashion?" Because they're talking about unpopular fashion,
Mhm.
and I asked someone what's going on, and they're like, "Your word was nominated for word of the year by the dictionary," and I'm like, "What word?"
What?
And it was Normcore, and they showed me this comic I'd made where the punchline was there's a bunch of weird like fashion trends, and the weirdest
Mhm.
one was Normcore, where they only wear things that after they've appeared on a sitcom or something
Mhm.
like that, like just completely normal clothes.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I didn't invent that, and they showed me my own comic, and I'm like, oh, I guess I made a comic about that. And unbeknownst to me, over those years, it had like been picked up by like
Mhm.
some fashion forecasting magazine, and then like used in every all these contexts. And then I started
Yeah.
seeing it everywhere. Like you'd see it appeared as a joke in like Parks and Rec. Ron Swanson was accused of being
Mhm.
normcore.
Mhm.
Uh, it was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Mhm.
I'm seeing like major department stores have a normcore section.
Mhm.
That's so
And
funny.
yeah, I accidentally invented that word.
Wow. Do you get any credit for inventing that word?
There's a lot of, every once in a while an article will pop up. I'll get a
Yeah.
Google alert that somebody's mentioning that it was created by me.
Ooh.
Yeah, I did it by accident. I didn't mean to. It's a really
Yeah.
dumb word. It's my
Yeah, it's
gag
like
gift to the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I would have copywritten it if I would have thought it was a thing, but I just wrote it down and moved on.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
We are getting to the point. I mean, this flew by. We're already at an
It
hour.
did. Yeah.
Um, I personally am not satisfied with everything that we've covered so far. I want to keep digging in and getting to it. So maybe we could have you back on for a part two if your schedule allows some time. But
Anytime.
before
I got
we,
so many stories.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have to
I
get
don't think we
into
even
it.
scratched the surface of the laundry list that you talked about of
Yeah,
I just remember Lost in Laos because of the alliteration of it. And
yeah,
so
Lost in Laos. Yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I think next time I'll just I'll give you a list of stories and you can play roulette and pick which ones you want to hear.
that's perfect.
Ooh, we could have a
We've done
wheel.
yeah, we've done something similar to that
Or the
with
hat.
a previous guest. Shout out Mike Payne.
Yeah,
Mm.
Mike Payne
But
stories.
I'm gonna pass it to Christian real quick, see if he's got anything else, and then I do have one last question that will probably spark one more story, which is why I'm starting to wrap it up. So, Christian, go for it.
I think I'll say mine. I feel like I don't have enough time, especially if you want to go. I have a lot of questions, but I think I'll save them for next time.
Okay.
A little
Um,
teaser.
my last question is, and I've always wondered this. I've been asking this for years. What is life like inside of a volcano?
I wasn't in the volcano; I was on the side of it.
Okay.
That would have been another time I was dead. But yeah, when I lived in Panama, just my house, there's this Volcan Baru, and they like grow coffee on the side of it. If you've
Oh,
ever heard of
Oh,
geisha
cool.
coffee, apparently
mhm.
it's like the one of the most expensive coffees in the world because it grows on the side of a volcano and grows out of like volcanic ash. And my house is like buried in the middle of among all those coffee trees. And yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful place to live. This tiny little town. Um, it was a cute place. One of my favorite things about that town is like I love living in small communities because like you see how like they're so tight knit, but you see how people things grow. There
Mhm.
was an acting troupe there, and the guy who ran it was like the biggest celebrity in town because he had played a teen stoner who gets killed in Psycho 3, I think, like one of the
Oh,
main shitty
nice.
Psycho
Oh,
movies. And like his only credit, he's like on screen for like 45 seconds and gets stabbed in the head, but he's like the hugest celebrity in the world on the side of this volcano. And he's like, I'm never leaving this town. I'm famous here.
Sure.
And was
yeah.
treated like a king.
That's incredible. Wait, it was it an active volcano or not no longer active at
I
that point?
don't believe it was active.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that one had me concerned and I was like, what is the story? I legitimately thought you lived inside of a volcano.
I don't think you can live in a volcano, Damien.
That's
That's
why I
fair.
asked.
I mean, supervillains do it.
Yeah,
That's true.
exactly. You never
That's
seen
true.
Megamind, you idiot? But anyways, that didn't go over well. All right. So thanks, Ryan, for
Yes,
coming
thank
by. That
you.
was a blast. I'm definitely looking forward to part two.
Me as well. Yes.
We have a lot of stories to get to, a lot of questions, and let's consider this an intro to Ryan Estrada on Remain Rome Return. Without further ado, let everybody who's listening know where they can find you, your website. You mentioned you run a podcast or a show of your own. Go ahead and take some time to plug all that stuff.
Yeah, go to ryanestrada.com and you'll find everything you need to know about me. There's information about my books. Please check out the Banned Book Club series. There's Banned Book Club, No Rules Tonight, and Good Old Fashioned Korean Spirit. Those are stories about my wife's experiences being hunted down by the cops in the 80s for smuggling illegal books across Korea. And there's
Oh.
there's also speaking of travel, the Student Ambassador series are inspired by my adventures, but they're fictional stories about a kid solving mysteries around the world. And then on my site, there's just thousands of pages of free comics you can read about my travels, get spoilers of some of the stories I'll tell next time. And yeah, all kinds of stuff. I don't have a podcast. I just am constantly guest on podcasts.
There you go.
I've had them in
Fair
the
enough.
past, but it's more fun to just come on other people's podcasts and then
Yeah.
make them with the old post-production work.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
You know what, Christian? See you, dude. I'm out of here. That's what I'm doing that now.
Yeah.
I'm done with this shit.
I don't know if you're as interesting though, Dane.
not even a minuscule bit am I even close to being as interesting as Ryan. But for that reason, I can't wait to have him back on. We
Yeah.
haven't even started talking about the books, everything. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Ryan, thanks for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
And until part 2, bye.
Bye.